Hello and welcome to the channel. I appreciate you stopping by for a visit. Today we're going to take a look at my portfolio holdings that are reporting Q2 earnings for week 32, covering August 4th through August the 8th of 2025. For each company, we'll examine the revenue and earnings estimates and the options market implied move. We'll review the current price charts, looking at relative strength and momentum indicators. Let's get started. For this week, OneOK reports after the bell on Monday, August the 4th. On August the 5th, I have PFE and NNN reporting before the bell, while Jackson Financial reports after the bell. On August the 6th, Uber reports before the bell. Lyft reports after the bell, along with Realty Income, F&F, and F&G Annuities and Life. Then on August the 7th, Warner Brothers Discovery reports before the bell, and Rocket Lab reports after the bell. Let's take a quick look at the earnings worksheet to see if anything surprising happened for the companies reporting previously. For the 28 companies reporting so far, 25 or 89% reported revenue that was in line or a beat. While for earnings, 2 were in line and 21 beat on earnings per share for a total of 82%. The earnings overall of $44 compared to estimates of $41.63 beat by 5.71%. The initial response for J&J was up 6.19%, exceeding the implied move of 3.1%. J&J finished 2 weeks later up 7.79%. UPS beat on revenue but missed on earnings and pulled their forward guidance. The initial response was 10.57 to the downside, exceeding the implied move of 7.1%. Qualcomm beat on revenue and earnings. Qualcomm provided guidance exceeding expectations, but still managed to decline 7.33% on the session following the report. The implied move was 7.1%. Q2 beat on revenue and earnings but closed down 9.77%, near the high end of the implied move. Amazon beat on the top and bottom lines but failed to show cloud growth when compared to Microsoft and Google. Amazon shares dropped 8.27%, exceeding the implied move of 5.4%. For this week, week 32, the 11 companies reporting are estimated to report earnings of $11.36 per share. 8 of the 11 are showing negative relative strength going into the earnings. I've also calculated the options market implied move for each company, and I'll share those results when discussing the individual companies. Before we look at the individual companies, I want to take a couple of minutes to discuss the current market conditions, as this may affect the market responses to these companies' earnings. All of the major market indexes were down last week, led by the transportation index that was down 7.7%. The small and mid-cap indexes were down around 3.5% to 4%. The Dow Jones closed down 2.92%. The S&P 500 was down 2.39%. The NASDAQ was down 2.19%. And the semiconductor index was down 2.09%. The S&P advanced only one day out of the 5 last week. We had 4 down days in a row. The S&P 500 is moving closer to the support line, which sits at the high achieved on February the 19th of 61.44. which also coincides with the 50-day moving average. We did fall down below the 20-day moving average, which since about April the 21st, we've tested once, twice, and then failed to support this week, and we moved down below that 20-day moving average. We do have negative relative strength, currently sitting below the midpoint. We have a reading of 47.81. We still have positive PPO, but we did have a bearish crossover a couple of days ago. I believe the market was due for some sort of pullback. We have a couple scenarios where we could come down and test this support line at around 61.44. If that could hold, we could see a bounce off of that. If it doesn't hold, we have a price shelf using these volume price bars of around 5,900 to 6,050, which would be my next support line that I think we need to keep a watch on. We also see the VIX has jumped up to 20.38 after trading in a 14 to 16 range. It also crossed above this 200-day moving average. We need to keep an eye on this VIX to see if it continues increasing or if we reach a short-term peak and start decreasing. Right now, fear seems to be moving back into the market, and it's currently sitting above a threshold of 20, which is pretty important for indication of higher uncertainty in the market.
OneOK is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Monday, August 4th after the market close. In the previous quarter, OKE reported revenue of $8.04 billion, beating revenue estimates by $681.89 million. OKE reported earnings of $1.04, missing estimates by 20 cents per share. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $8.33 billion with earnings of $1.33 per share. Over the last 90 days, 4 analysts raised estimates and 5 analysts lowered estimates. OKE beats analysts' one-year forward estimates 64% of the time. OKE is showing negative relative strength going into earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 5.5%. Please leave a comment if you have a thought to share about OKE.
The OKE one-year daily price chart shows that OKE has pretty much been trading sideways since April 7th, which was right around the tariff announcements. We did have a high of 113.92 on about November the 25th of last year. We have had negative PPO crossing positive over the last week, but is starting to decrease once more. The RSI has been improving slightly, but still sits below the midpoint of 50 with a current reading of 44.19. So overall, OKE is showing somewhat negative relative strength as we move into the earnings.
Pfizer is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Tuesday, August 5th before the market opens. In the previous quarter, PFE reported revenue of $13.72 billion, missing revenue estimates by $335.86 million. PFE reported earnings of 92 cents per share, beating estimates by 25 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $13.53 billion with earnings per share of 57 cents per share. Over the last 90 days, 8 analysts raised estimates and 4 analysts lowered estimates. PFE meets or beats analysts' one-year forward estimates 82% of the time. PFE is showing negative relative strength going into earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 4.1%. Leave a comment if you have a thought to share about Pfizer.
The PFE one-year daily price chart is showing that PFE has improved slightly from the April 9th lows. The last couple of trading days has taken a little bit of a hit on PFE, currently trading around 23.5. I do see it's trading below a declining 20-day moving average, a declining 200-day moving average, and it also fell below a rising 50-day moving average. We had been in positive territory on the PPO, but 2 or 3 days ago it moved into negative territory. We also have an RSI that has declined below the midpoint, currently trading at 39.98. So overall, Pfizer is showing weakness as it moves into the earnings this week.
NNN is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Tuesday, August 5th before the market open. In the previous quarter, NNN reported revenue of $230.85 million, beating revenue estimates by $10.95 million. NNN reported funds from operations of 86 cents per share, beating estimates by 4 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $224.28 million with funds from operations of 84 cents per share. Over the last 90 days, no analysts raised estimates and 5 analysts lowered estimates. NNN beats analysts' one-year forward estimates 91% of the time. NNN is showing negative relative strength going into earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 6.9%. Please leave a comment if you have a thought to share about NNN.
NNN REIT is currently trading at 4202. It did close above a 50-day moving average on Friday. It is trading below a downward sloping 20-day moving average and trading above a downward sloping 200-day moving average. The PPO did move into negative territory, and the RSI is slightly negative, currently at 49.41. So overall, National Retail Properties is showing some weakness moving into the earnings.
Jackson Financial is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Tuesday, August 5th after the market close. In the previous quarter, Jackson reported revenue of $1.77 billion, missing revenue estimates by $9 million. Jackson reported earnings of $5.10 per share, beating estimates by 17 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $1.75 billion with earnings per share of $4.64 expected. Over the last 90 days, 1 analyst raised estimates and 3 analysts lowered estimates. JXN hit or beat analysts' one-year forward estimates 33% of the time. JXN is showing negative relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 9.7%. Please leave a comment if you have a thought to share about Jackson Financial.
The Jackson 1-year daily chart shows that Jackson closed below all of its major averages on Friday. The PPO is still positive, but we did have a bearish crossover at the beginning of July. The RSI also is trading in bearish territory, currently at 42.44. So overall, Jackson is showing some weakness as we move into the earnings this week.
Uber is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Wednesday, August 6th before the market open. In the previous quarter, Uber reported revenue of $11.53 billion, missing revenue estimates by $86.25 million. Uber reported earnings of $1.06 per share, beating estimates by 36 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $12.47 billion with earnings per share of 82 cents. Over the last 90 days, 29 analysts raised estimates and 4 analysts lowered estimates. Uber meets or beats analysts' one-year forward estimates 100% of the time. Uber is showing negative relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 7.8%. Please leave a comment if you have a thought to share about Uber.
The Uber 1-year daily price chart shows that Uber has recovered quite nicely from the April 7th lows where it reached 60.63, currently trading at 86.91. It is trading below a downward sloping 20-day moving average and a downward sloping 50-day moving average. 4 days ago, it did cross below that average and has been trading there since. It is trading above, it looks like a flat 200-day moving average. The PPO has moved into negative territory, and the RSI is also trading in bearish territory. So overall, while the price has recovered nicely, moving into the earnings, it looks like it's showing some weakness.
Lyft is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Wednesday, August 6th after the market close. In the previous quarter, Lyft reported revenue of $1.45 billion, missing revenue estimates by $13.87 million. Lyft reported earnings of 11 cents per share, missing estimates by 10 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $1.61 billion with earnings per share of 28 cents expected. Over the last 90 days, 10 analysts raised estimates and 12 analysts lowered estimates. Lyft meets or beats analysts' 1-year forward estimates 60% of the time. Lyft is showing negative relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 14.3%. Please leave a comment if you have a thought to share about Lyft.
The Lyft 1-year daily price chart shows that Lyft recovered quite nicely after the tariff announcements from the low on April the 8th or 9th up to a high of 1752, but since that time has been trailing downward. It is currently trading below all of its moving averages, downsloping 50-day, a downsloping 20-day, looks like a rising 200-day. The PPO is currently negative, and the RSI is currently negative and in oversold condition. Overall, Lyft is showing some weakness as it moves into the earnings this week.
Realty Income is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Wednesday, August 6th after the market close. In the previous quarter, Realty Income reported revenue of $1.31 billion, beating revenue estimates by $15.28 million. Realty Income reported funds from operations of $1.05 per share, missing estimates by 1 cent. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $1.33 billion with funds from operations of $1.06 per share expected. Over the last 90 days, 3 analysts raised estimates and 2 analysts lowered estimates. Realty Income meets or beats analyst forward 1-year estimates 100% of the time. Realty Income is showing negative relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 3.1%. Please leave a comment if you have a thought to share about Realty Income.
The Realty Income 1-year daily price chart got a pretty good recovery from the tariff announcement lows of about $49. Back up to trading it in the 56 range. It has been pretty flat over the last 6 weeks or so. Friday it did close above the 50-day moving average, which is increasing at the moment. It is below the 20-day, which is decreasing, and above the 200-day, which is also decreasing. And after the jobs report on Friday, it seems that the market is now giving a higher probability to a rate cut in September, which would be beneficial for any of the REITs. And 4 of my 5 REIT holdings on Friday after that jobs report were actually up on Friday, while the market overall took a pretty big hit. Realty Income also went ex-dividend on Friday. We do have a PPO that is in negative territory with a bearish crossover about a week or so ago. We also have the RSI slightly negative at 48, but is increasing at the moment. So overall, Realty income is showing negative strength as it moves into the earnings, but things look to be improving for Realty income and REITs overall.
Fidelity National Financial is scheduled to report first quarter earnings on Wednesday, August 6 after the market close. In the previous quarter, FNF reported revenue of $2.73 billion, missing revenue estimates by $595.13 million. FNF reported earnings of 78 cents per share, missing estimates by 33 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $3.54 billion with earnings per share of $1.41 expected. Over the last 90 days, no analysts raised estimates and 4 analysts lowered estimates. FNF hit or beat analysts' one-year forward estimates 91% of the time. FNF is showing positive relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 6.8%. Please leave a comment if you have a thought to share about Fidelity National Financial.
The Fidelity National one-year daily price chart. We saw a fairly large price swing in early May down through about the third week of May. Fidelity National missed on both the top and bottom lines, and also the 10-year Treasury rate was increasing during this period, providing 2 headwinds to the price. And then in early July, we also saw the 10-year rate increase by a couple hundred basis points, which also negatively impacted the Fidelity National price. It is currently trading at around $56, trading below its 200-day but above the 20-day and 50-day. The PPO is positive at the moment, along with the RSI. So overall, FNF is actually looking fairly strong as it moves into the earnings this week.
FNG Annuities and Life is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Wednesday, August 6 after the market close. In the previous quarter, FG reported revenue of $908 million, missing revenue estimates by $565 million. FG reported earnings of 72 cents per share, missing estimates by 24 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $1.18 billion with earnings per share of 57 cents expected. Over the last 90 days, no analysts raised estimates and 2 analysts lowered estimates. FG meets or beats analysts' one-year forward estimates 50% of the time. FG is showing negative relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 18.5%. Please leave a comment if you have a thought to share about FNG.
FNG has been on a steady decline since about the end of November, where it was trading at $49.89 down to its current trading price of $31.38. It is trading below a declining 200-day, declining 50-day, and trading above its declining 20-day moving average. The PPO is negative, and the RSI is also in negative territory. So F&G is showing some weakness as it moves into its earnings this week.
Warner Bros. Discovery is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Thursday, August 7 before the market open. In the previous quarter, WBD reported revenue of $8.98 billion, missing revenue estimates by $615.54 million. WBD reported earnings of 1 cent per share, beating estimates by 13 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $9.81 billion with earnings per share of minus 12 cents expected. Over the last 90 days, 7 analysts raised estimates and 2 analysts lowered estimates. WBD meets or beats analysts' one-year forward estimates 64% of the time. WBD is showing positive relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 8.2%. Please leave a comment if you have a thought to share about Warner Brothers Discovery.
The Warner Brothers Discovery 1-year daily price chart. We can see that we were trading at $12.70 in the middle of December, and we took about a 40% hit by the tariff announcement dates, trading down to $7.52 per share. And since that time, we've recovered about 70% to $12.87 per share. It is trading above an increasing 20-day moving average, 50-day moving average, and 200-day moving average. We did have the 50-day moving average cross above the 200-day, providing an indication that we are in a confirmed uptrend. In about the third week of May, we did cross into positive territory on the PPO with a pretty steady increase since that time. It has since rolled over a bit, and we did have a bearish crossover. The RSI was in an overbought condition for 2 weeks, has since moved out of that and currently sitting at 60.22 on the RSI. We've also had fairly strong accumulation over the last month. So overall, WBD is looking pretty strong as it moves into the earnings this week.
Rocket Lab USA is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Thursday, August 7th after the market close. In the previous quarter, Rocket Lab reported revenue of $122.57 million, beating revenue estimates by $1.2 million. Rocket Lab reported earnings of minus 7 cents per share, beating estimates by 2 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $135.41 million with earnings per share of minus 8 cents expected. Over the last 90 days, 3 analysts raised estimates while 3 lowered estimates. Rocket Lab beats or meets analysts' one-year forward estimates 100% of the time. Rocket Lab is showing positive relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 13.9%. Please leave a comment if you have a thought to share about Rocket Lab.
The Rocket Lab USA 1-year daily price chart shows that we've broken out above this previous resistance of around $32 and have continued increasing past that. Rocket Lab is up about 156% from the April 7th low following the tariff announcements. It did trade below a rising 20-day moving average on Friday. It is trading above a 50-day and a 200-day moving average that are both rising as well. We did have a bearish crossover about a week ago in the PPO, but we are still in positive territory. The RSI, we were in an overbought condition for 2 weeks. Moved back into that after a few days, and then since then we're in positive territory, but decreasing RSI, currently sitting at 56.73. I also see 52-week high on the accumulation. So I think Rocket Lab is looking pretty strong as we move into the earnings this week. That wraps up the review of company earnings for my portfolio holdings this week. If you find this video helpful, I request that you subscribe to the channel for alerts on future videos. I would also appreciate a like on the video to help support this channel. Once again, thank you for stopping by today. I wish you well and remember to trade well.